it up a little. Good evening, and welcome to the Hatha Yoga Center, 7 p.m., Monday evening, August 14th, 2020. Excuse me, August 17th, 2020. I don't know where that came from. Though I am a little bit, ever since the pandemic started, I have to really check in with the date more frequently because it seems to escape me. I'm just going to move this down and get a little closer to the camera. So, anyway, my name is Chris, and it's a very warm evening in Seattle. Our second night of around, well, yesterday was close to 100. Today, I think, was around 90. So I'm going to do kind of a slower, lower class tonight. More close to the floor, staying cool, and maybe start out with some breath work. So I'm going to sit up on my block, and you might be doing that too, or you might be sitting on the floor or a cushion, or even on a chair, but finding somewhere where you can find your long spine, find your seat. So kind of feeling into your seat and just moving around a little bit, swaying, maybe circling a little bit until you come to a place that feels somewhat centered. So you can feel your sit bones poking into the surface that you're sitting on. So just making yourself comfortable, feeling really heavy in your lower body, feeling your spine rising up, and feeling how your head can be balanced right on top of your shoulders so there's no strain in your neck. And then you might close your eyes or just find a soft, sorry about that. Sometimes when using the iPhone to live stream, I get phone calls which interrupt the live stream for a moment. I try to let everybody know that I'm doing it and not to call me during that time, but it doesn't always work. Anyway, so coming back to your seat and feeling the breath, just starting to feel it without changing anything, just feeling the breath coming in and out through the nose. And actually, you might take a moment to just kind of look around the space you're in before you close your eyes or find your soft gaze, and just kind of orienting yourself in your space. So we're grounding ourselves before we start our practice. You're seeing all the familiar things. Most likely you're probably in your own home at this point. So just grounding yourself with all of those familiar things in your house or outside. I know sometimes people watch these later from outdoors. And then you might go ahead and close your eyes and find your soft gaze if you don't feel like closing your eyes. And begin to start to lengthen your breath a bit, both the inhale and exhale. I'm going to take your hands and bring them to your rib cage. So bring your thumbs around the back and your fingers around the front of the rib cage, and start to take some breath in and out, and feel the expansion and the contraction of your rib cage with the breath. This is a good way to really feel how your rib cage and your chest move with the breath. Just kind of noticing how when you start to do that, you might start to take a little deeper breath. It sort of encourages you to do that. When you realize kind of what's happening with your breath, you might breathe a little bit more consciously, a little more fully. And then you can take your hands and maybe take your left hand to your belly. And now feel as you're inhaling and exhaling the movement of your belly. And let your belly move. See if you can relax it a little bit. And just taking a few breaths into your belly, letting the breath come deeper into your body, letting your respiratory diaphragm move with the breath. We don't really have a lot of sensation of the diaphragm, but we can feel the pressure that it creates as it moves down. We can feel that in our belly. And we might be able to feel that we can fill our lungs more completely if we let our belly move a bit with the breath. So just a couple more of these conscious breaths. And then you might bring your hands together at your heart and just pause for a moment. If you'd like to set an intention for your practice this evening, or perhaps you're watching this later, setting an intention if you'd like to do that. Maybe bowing your head and taking a breath or two, just holding that intention in the light of your awareness. And then take your arms and sweep them out to the sides like you're slowly gathering up some air, inhaling the arms up slowly. And then you can bend your elbows, just bring your palms together and exhale as you bring your hands back down. Let's do that 2 more times, just really slowly, almost like the air has some weight to it and you're gathering it up, like you're moving through something thick. Exhaling as you bring your hands down through center, and 1 more time. Inhale, feeling the expansion of your ribcage, and exhale. Exhaling all the air out. And then maybe just bringing your hands down onto your thighs, or onto the knees, just starting to circle around in one direction. And you can move your belly as you do this, maybe drawing it in as you come backwards and rounding a bit, and then maybe as you come forwards, you're kind of leaning in and arching. And then just circling in the opposite direction, making the circles as big or small as you like. There's no right way to do it. You might kind of come to balance on one side, on one sit bone, and then over onto the other. Starting to really feel into the movement that you're making and how it relates to your breath as well. Coming back to center, bring your left hand to the floor and just sweep your right arm up. And you might bring your gaze up and gaze underneath your right arm. You can also look forward, but keep your neck long. And taking a breath here. Resist the urge to scrunch up your left shoulder. And then sweeping over to the other side, bringing the right hand down, left arm up. The palm could turn to face the back of the room. Again, just gaze is upward. Feeling some length, perhaps, in the left side of your body, even as you ground your sit bone and reach up through the fingertips. And coming back to center. And then you might sweep the arms up and come into a twist, bringing right hand to your left knee, turning your spine, and then left hand over to the right knee. Nice deep breath there. And then back to center. And then one more thing, just leaning forward with your heart, inhaling and exhale as you round back. So moving with the breath. You can do it the other way too. You could inhale as you come back and exhale as you come forward. It doesn't really matter, but just noticing. Usually as we kind of round the back and draw the belly in, it feels better to push the air out. But there's not like a wrong answer there or a wrong way to do it. It's just more like an exploration. And then we'll take that block out and set it off to the side, or your cushion if you're sitting on one. And then I'm going to come and lay down here. I'm going to take my glasses off and just lay down on your back. And you might have your strap handy. So if you have a yoga strap, that's great, or you could also use some other type of strap. And just bringing the knees in towards your chest and rocking a little bit from side to side, breathing bring the feet down, and the feet will be parallel, about hip width. And you can just bring your arms down by your sides with the backs of your hands on the floor, and just start to rock a little bit. So press into your heels and kind of push yourself up towards your head and then release. So you're kind of jiggling up and down. And you'll kind of feel your spine moving up and down. And then just pause for a moment and bring your arms up and your legs up and start shaking your arms and legs. Shake your hands and your feet. It's a little bit goofy. There's not a right way to look while you're doing it. And then draw the knees in again and just rock a little bit from side to side. And then bringing the legs up. Let's actually let's bring your left foot down, keeping your left knee bent, and just start to circle. You can bring your hands back behind the thigh, or just have them down by your sides, but just start to circle your ankle in one direction. Just, you can see it, so noticing kind of what your possibility of the range of motion in this way is with the ankle. And then do a little flex and point of your foot, drawing the toes back towards the shin, and then pointing the toes, maybe moving the toes a little bit as you do that. And draw the knee in, and you can just kind of move your knee around, kind of feeling into the movement of the hip. In fact, you could start to circle in one direction, keeping your sacrum, the flat bone, the base of your lower back, keeping that kind of pinned to the floor, then maybe circling in the opposite direction. Just kind of waking up our body slowly here and moving a little bit slower this evening because of the heat. And then drawing the knee in again and just kind of compressing the front of the hip a little bit, flexing your hip and your knee. And then release that foot down to the floor and draw your left leg up. Again, you could reach back behind the thigh and just circle your foot in one direction and the other. Maybe moving your toes. And then you might point and flex your foot on this side, maybe moving the toes while you do that. And then drawing your knee in again towards your chest, and maybe taking the left hand on the knee and starting to make circles, feeling into the rotation of your hip. Feel how you have to have just a little engagement in your belly muscles, switching directions of the circling to keep that movement controlled so that your back stays on the floor, keeping that kind of neutral curve of your lower spine, and drawing that knee in again. Even as you draw your knee in, keep pressing tailbone back towards the floor. Take a nice deep breath. And then bring that foot down, so knees are bent, feet are parallel, hands down by your sides, and just roll up. Just come up real slowly, so maybe pausing about halfway up, coming into bridge pose, coming a little higher. You might tuck your shoulders underneath one at a time. Maybe you could clasp your hands, but you certainly don't have to. Sometimes it feels better not to. Keeping the back of your neck with its natural curve. So you might untuck your chin a little bit. A couple more breaths in this bridge pose, maybe coming up a little higher, lifting the pelvis. And then real slowly rolling your spine down to the floor. So using your belly muscles to help with control of that movement. And then go up and down a couple times, just rolling up and rolling down. Just do that 3 or 4 times, slowly. Feeling what different muscles are working to help you lift your pelvis and to bring it back down. And then draw the knees in and rock again side to side. And then let's bring your right ankle on top of the left knee. And then maybe you can reach back behind your thigh, your left thigh, possibly pressing your right elbow into your knee, maybe rocking a little bit from side to side. And then bring your left foot back down and switch, bringing your left ankle on top of your right knee, maybe reaching through and reaching for your thigh and rocking side to side, feeling a stretch in your outer hip. Maybe you're pushing your left elbow into the left thigh a little bit. And then release that and bring your feet back down to the floor. You can take your hands kind of into the tops of your thighs and just kind of press a little bit, lengthening your spine, getting a little traction-y kind of feeling there. Not pushing too hard, but just feeling a little space in your lumbar spine. And then stretch your legs out and bring your arms up over your head and really stretch. And then we'll roll over onto our side and we'll come up to a seated position and bring your hands back behind you and bring your feet about a little wider than hip width. I'm going to turn like this. So your feet are kind of wide, and then let the knees drop over towards the left, kind of lifting your heart a little bit, so you're stretching into the shoulders and the front of the chest. And then let the knees come over towards the right. You can reposition your hands, trying to bring your left knee towards the floor, even as your right knee is kind of pressing towards the floor on the other side. And then next time you bring your knees over towards the left, you could lift your right arm and bring it up and over, coming into this gentle twist. Then bring the right hand back up and over, and the knees come over towards the right. The left arm comes up and over to the floor. So you're in a seated twist. And the left arm comes back. And just do that a couple times, slowly moving through that sequence. Maybe coordinating it somehow with your breath in your own way. Again, there's not like a right way to breathe in this particular movement, but you might be able to find your own right way to breathe. Let's go through one more time. Going slowly. And then back to center. And turn your fingertips back away from your body. And this might be enough of a stretch for your shoulders, or perhaps you could press into your hands and lift the hips up, coming into this kind of reverse tabletop position. You might keep your chin tucked, or you could challenge with your neck if it feels safe for your neck and kind of look straight up at the ceiling, so you're working your neck muscles. And then slowly bringing your hips back down to the floor. And then a couple times just slowly up and down, like we did with bridge pose, but now this is coming backwards. It's not backwards, but it's different. Maybe one more time up. See if you can press evenly into your feet and hands. And then seat comes back down. Bring the soles of your feet together and kind of out from your, so not tight in like in cobbler's pose, but more like in tortoise. And from there, you could start out by coming forward with a long spine. without rounding. And just feeling that stretch in your hips. And then you might allow yourself to round, but do it intentionally, bringing your head towards the soles of your feet. And then coming back up. Maybe taking your feet a little wider apart and sitting up tall. Kind of letting your knees drop open. And then drawing them in, your feet soles together, coming into cobbler's pose, sitting up tall here, letting your knees drop out, open to the sides. You might be able to kind of feel how the inner arms, the inner upper arms are pressing into the sides of your rib cage, and you can feel the breath. You can feel the rib cage expanding and contracting with the breath against your arms. And then maybe here you could come forward, maybe rounding, but doing it with caution. So maybe drawing the belly in and being aware of the rounding of your spine. Our spine is made to round forward, which is called flexion. It's meant to extend backwards, which is called extension, to come into a back bend. And we do a lot of flexing of our spine. We do a lot of rounding forward, thanks to all of our screens and our habits. And so we often are trying to stay out of rounding because it's a habit that a lot of us have, that we aren't always aware of. And staying more with a neutral spinal alignment, which involves some curve in our lumbar spine and in the back of our neck. So bringing the sole of your left foot into your inner thigh. You might have your strap handy, and looping your strap perhaps around your foot so that it extends your arms so that you can maybe come forward, but with this long spine. You might be able to reach your foot too. The strap just helps to give you a little lengthen your arms so you don't have to strain your shoulders at all or round forward. Sometimes it helps to find your gaze, which you might have heard the word drishti. This is a Sanskrit word for gaze. And we use that sometimes to help us stay focused, just as we use the breath. So feeling the back of the leg, behind the knee, and then just coming back up and taking a little twist and actually bringing your right hand to your left knee and turning and breathing. So there's kind of this lifting and lengthening of the spine. The shoulders are relaxing down the back, away from the ears. So not jamming your shoulders, but just feeling the ability for your shoulders to slide. And then turn and take a little counter twist. Just an easy counter twist. And then we'll flip-flop our legs. We'll extend the left leg, bringing the sole of the right foot into the inner thigh, maybe using your strap. So see if that you can let your knee just kind of relax towards the floor. And then maybe coming forward, breathing. Perhaps reaching for the foot or using the strap. And this is a straight left leg. So if your knee's bending, just back off a little bit, straighten the leg. You might be here. You might be sitting like this to be able to keep the spine neutral. That's fine. If you're coming forward, it's with the hinge at the hip. then coming back up, we'll take the twist, bringing the left hand to the right knee and just turning towards that knee. And then turning back to face forward, extending both legs. You might lean back a little bit and just let your feet flop from side to side, feeling the femur bones kind of moving in the hip sockets. And then let's come up to stand at the front of our mat. So finding your way to your standing mountain pose, and spread your feet. Your feet are about hip width, so you could look down at your feet. Notice if one of your feet is like turned out or doing something different than the other, and just gently coax your feet to be parallel and hip width. And then feel how you're kind of grounding down through your lower back so that you can lift up through the front of your body. The pubic bone, the sternum, this bone here, flat bone in the middle of your rib cage, sort of lengthening up. You could let your arms float up, maybe spreading your hands, spreading the fingers apart, lifting the gaze, taking a couple of breaths here, and then just slowly coming forward, hinging forward at the hip, again keeping your long spine. Nice steady breath. Taking a couple breaths in your forward fold. Feeling a little traction in your spine. If you bring your hands, say, to your thighs or the shins, you might be able to kind of use some leverage to get a little length in the spine. And then from here, we'll step the left foot back, bringing the left knee down, squaring the hips, and letting your arms come up. Just bringing your weight back over the left knee, lifting up, just like we did in our standing pose. We're grounding through the sacrum, so we're kind of lengthening down through our lower back and lifting up through the front of our body, breathing, trying to maintain this neutral alignment of our spine. And then exhale, bringing the hands down to the knee, walking the foot forward, coming deeper into the lunge. Finding the breath here. So we're not just dumping into the hip, we're actually lifting up at the same time. Maybe a little engagement around the pelvis here, in the back. You could even bring your hand back to your thigh, your left hand back. And then bring your left hand down to the floor, kind of near the right foot, and open up into the twist. So you're opening your shoulders, you're stacking the shoulders, opening your chest, letting the head drop back, finding the breath, and then sweeping that arm down, and stepping back to hands and knees for a moment. We'll do some cat-cow. So spread your hands and round the spine, let your head drop, probably exhaling there since you're lifting your belly. And then inhale, letting the belly drop, and just moving like this between cat and cow. Feeling all of those little joints in your spine moving together, and also each segment of your spine is moving separately. Then tuck your toes and bring your hips back, bringing some weight back so that you can stretch the bottoms of the feet for a moment and the backs of the legs before lifting up into downward facing dog. Lifting the hips, dropping the elbows in, coming into downward facing dog, and you can move a little bit, bending into one knee and the other. Maybe lifting one hip, bending one knee. And then let's come forward to plank pose. That could be with the knees lifted or with the knees down. finding a long neutral spine. And then with the knees lifted or down, just coming down onto the belly with the elbows by your sides. Coming into Sphinx pose to begin with, spreading the hands, drawing the belly forward. You might turn and kind of look behind on either side, moving your neck. And just taking a couple more breaths here. Noticing if you have any extra tension, like in your jaw, release it. And then let your arms sweep back and clasp your hands at your sacrum, lifting the toes, coming into locust pose. Lifting up and breathing, feeling all those muscles around your spine waking up. Keeping the hands lifted. Maybe rocking a little bit from side to side. And release the hands, bringing them underneath the shoulders, tucking your elbows in, bending your knees, and coming back up to downward facing dog. Stepping left foot up and over right foot, lifting the left hip. So bringing the sole of your left foot to the floor and lifting your left hip, so feeling length up the left side of your body. Stepping back to center and stepping right foot up and over, bringing the sole of the right foot to the floor. Really reaching through your hands and wrapping your elbows in. And stepping back to center. And then from there we'll step the left foot forward, bringing the right knee down, coming up, squaring the hips. This time reach back and clasp your hands, lifting your heart, keeping the weight back over the right knee, and breathing, just keeping your neck neutral, so it's tempting to extend the neck or just keep it comfortable, easy. Releasing the hands, stepping your left foot forward a little bit, coming a little deeper into the lunge, still lifting up. You bring your right hand back, kind of helping to lift your heart. And then your right hand will come down by the left foot, and we'll sweep your left arm up, stacking your shoulders, coming into this twisted low lunge. And just letting the head come back, opening the chest, sweeping the left arm down. And then we're going to step forward into the forward bend. Bending your knees quite a bit for a moment. Maybe you can bring your chest down onto your thighs. And then straightening the legs. Walk your hands up so you're about halfway, like in a 90-degree position. You can keep your knees bent a bit if you want. And just hold that for a moment, keeping the shoulders on the back of the rib cage, the shoulder blades kind of glued to the back of the rib cage. And with that same flat back, come all the way up to stand. Coming back to this standing mountain pose, called Tadasana, or equal standing pose, also called Samastitihi. You can bring your hands together at your heart. Pause for a moment, finding your breath. And then you might let your arms hang. And just let your arms swing. Do a little side to side. Twisting with your arms kind of dead weight. See if you can let them be super relaxed. Coming back to center. And then here, let's come into a wide-legged position. You could turn to be facing sideways on your mat. Not super wide at this point, but kind of like a little wider than hip width. And then bring your arms up. So you're kind of like in a star shape. Your palms are facing forward. We're just going to rock from side to side. So you're going to lift your right foot and then rock over to your right foot, lifting left foot. It's okay if you have to bring the foot back down. Just go side to side like that a few times. See how far you can come over without losing it. Just play with it a little. And then come back to center. Let your arms hang for a moment. In fact, you could shake them out, shake your hands. And then let's make our feet a little wider than that. So we're coming into a wide-legged forward bend. So hinging forward at the hips. You could turn your toes slightly turned in. And just bend into one knee and the other. Going from side to side. You could have your hands on the floor or maybe on a block. You can also lift your hands and use your core a little bit. Next time you come over to the right, you can just pause there. You bring the hands down to support you. Keeping the spine long. And then come over to the left. And keep your hands lifted too. And then back to center. Keeping right hand in between the line of the toes, turning your fingertips, pointing towards the back of your mat. Coming into a twist. So you're just turning your spine. Both sit bones are drawing back. You could bring your left hand back to your sacrum or to all the way around to the thigh, if that feels good for your shoulder. I also like this variation where you pick up your right hand and press into your left thigh. Kind of leaning back into the hips. And then release that. Bringing the left hand in between these centered, in between the line of your toes. Fingers maybe pointing back so the shoulder can open. And the right arm comes back, turning your spine. And the neck long. Nice deep breath. Maybe picking your left hand up and push it into the inner, or into the right thigh to lengthen the spine. Kind of bring the weight back into the hips. And then release that and turn forward. And you might turn your toes in quite a bit and kind of bend into one knee and the other carefully, just feeling into these tight muscles and on the outer part of your lower legs. For me, that feels pretty intense, like in a beneficial kind of way. And then coming back to center, you could bring your hands to your hips and come all the way up. Then straightening your arms out to the sides, you could turn the hands, fingers up and press through your palms. So draw the fingertips back towards the back of your forearm, like you're pressing two walls away from you. And then turn bend your hands down so the fingers are pointing towards the floor. It's a little bit harder. And then maybe go up and down a few times through the extension and flexion of your wrist. And then release those arms. And let's turn to face the front of our mat with our right foot forward. And so maybe step your back foot in a little bit so it's not too deep of a stance with your feet. And then we're going to just do a little bit of balancing kind of work here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come forward and lift the back foot and then lift the front foot a couple of times. And maybe you can balance for a moment. Just playing with it. So it's just like an exploration. There's not a perfect shape you're trying to make, but you're using your core muscles. Next time you come back and you lift the front foot, just pause there. With the chest open, heart lifted, core engaged. And then bring that foot down. And then step your left foot back a little bit. You can clasp your hands behind you, opening your shoulders. And then keeping the hips square, hinging forward at the hip. Angling the toes of your back foot out a bit. And coming forward. You can always have a little bend in the front knee if you need to. Keep drawing the right hip back though. Coming about halfway, take a couple breaths. You could lift your hands off your sacrum for a little more intensity. Then release your hands. They might come to your thigh or down towards the ankle or even to the floor or block. But keeping your long spine. Feel how your right hip kind of wants to draw forward. See if you can keep drawing it back, lengthening through both sides of your torso. This is pyramid pose. So your legs are straight, your back is straight. It's a pyramid. The head's not dropping forward. Just keeping the neck long. And just one more breath there. And then we're just going to turn to face the front of the mat, keeping the feet wide. And just bending into one knee and the other, going side to side, just kind of letting your shoulders get involved, your elbows. Then bringing the hands to the hips and coming up, and we'll turn towards the other end of the mat with the left foot forward, stepping your back foot in a little bit. We'll do that kind of rocking thing, so we'll lift the left foot, and then come forward and lift the back leg. You might fall or you might tip over, it's okay. We're just playing with that kind of rocking and balancing movement. Maybe suspending for a second in the air. And then the next time you come and bring your weight into the back foot and lift your front leg, try to pause, keeping that leg lifted, engaged in the core, strong leg, and then bringing that foot down and stepping your right foot back further. Toes are angling out, hands clasped behind you, and we'll hinge forward, coming into pyramid on this side. You could lift your hands off your back for a little more work. Keep drawing the right hip back. And then releasing your hands. They might come to the shin or to the thigh, or possibly to the floor. But remember that you're hinging at the hip, so there's no rounding, and you're breathing. Finding your breath. Feeling how your foot kind of wants to peel up off the floor. For me, it would be the inner edge of the foot, just to relieve some of the strain in my hip. Instead, bend your knee a little bit and keep the sole of the foot on the floor as you slowly straighten. And then coming back up and step forward. And just let your arms hang. Coming back to your center, back to your Tadasana or your Samastitihi, your equal standing pose. So feeling how when you stand, there might be a little more weight in one side of your body. Like you might be putting a little more weight into your right side or into the left side. So just kind of feeling what's your habit. And then moving a little bit. So taking some of the weight out and making it more even. And then if your hands are pressing together, just feeling the palms gently touching each other. So you're not pressing real hard, but there's just a sense of evenness as you press your palms together in this mudra, Anjali mudra, your hands together at your heart. And then releasing your hands, bring your right hand back behind you. You can also bring your left hand back. And without rounding forward, so kind of drawing the shoulders up and back, so you can feel your shoulder blades are able to slide a bit. pressing the back of your hand into your back without arching the back. So you're just keeping your body still, and you're feeling that in the shoulders. And then release that and bring your right hand now on top. And breathing. Noticing if you're gathering any tension, like in the jaw or the neck, see if you can keep it easy. Relax your face for the rest of your life. Release your hands and just let them shake out a little bit. And then let's come to downward facing dog. So spreading the hands, stepping back. Coming into your downward facing dog, the knees could be bent a lot, the hips are lifting. You're wrapping your elbows in and the shoulder blades can slide. And from here, let's lift the right leg up and then draw the knee forward, rounding, maybe exhaling the knee towards the forehead, and then lift it back up. Inhale, rounding, feel your belly lifting. One more time, reaching up, drawing it forward and rounding, and then coming into pigeon pose. So the knee is angling out towards the edge of the mat, so you can feel that in your outer hip muscles. Maybe you're on your fingertips, lifting the heart, taking a couple breaths here, setting yourself up, and then slowly coming forward, maybe to your forearms, and taking a few breaths here with a long spine. So noticing how sometimes if we want to drop our head forward or collapse in our shoulders, instead just keep that long neutral spine. Feeling that stretch in the outer hip and maybe feeling it in some other places too. Nice steady breath. And then walking the hands back. Again, coming into a little bit of a back bend. Leaning over towards your right and swinging your left leg around. So the sole of your left foot comes to the outside of your right thigh. Now, if in order to do that and to get your sit bones back evenly on the floor, you're feeling any strain in your right knee, then just straighten that leg. Sitting up tall, so the right knee could be bent or straight, your choice. And just take a breath there, feeling into your sit bones again, noticing if there's like more weight in one side of the body, and just evening it out, tucking your right hand underneath the left inner thigh and taking your twist. So just slowly making your way into the twist. Crown of the head is lengthening up. Front of your chest is opening and you're breathing. Maybe you can let your belly relax. The tendency, of course, is to like draw the belly in. There's nothing wrong with that, but you might be able to relax it a little bit, make a little space for the belly so you can bring in a little more breath here. And then turn to face the front of, to face back towards the front, and then let's just, from here, let's just swing your back leg back, and as gracefully as possible, coming back up to downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And just bending into one knee and the other. And then from here, we'll let the left leg come up and round the back, draw the knee towards the forehead, lift it back up. Rounding, exhale, draw it forward. One more time, inhale it up, rounding, and coming into pigeon on the other side. So maybe this kind of back bend, upright pigeon, and then coming forward to the forearms. Noticing how you might want to drop one hip, see if you can kind of keep them sort of level. You can reposition your knee if you need to. A couple breaths there. Resisting the urge to drop your head forward. That interferes with the breath. So keeping your neck and throat open and long. And then just kind of walking the hands back in, leaning over to the left, and bringing your right leg all the way around, bringing it over to the other side of the left thigh. And again, you might straighten the left leg and keep it bent too, but allowing your sit bones to come back to an evenly kind of weighted place with the spine rising up in the middle. Reaching your left hand underneath your right thigh, and the right hand comes back behind you, breathing. So feeling that sense of your rib cage expanding, contracting with the breath, just like we did at the beginning of class. Crown of the head is lengthening up. And just another breath, and then turning back to face the front. And then we'll swing the legs back, coming to your downward facing dog again. You could make your feet wide. Make your feet the width of your mat, and your hands shoulder width or a little wider. So you're in like a wide-legged downward dog with your hands wide. And then let your knees come down. Maybe the knees come out to the sides a little bit, the feet come together and come into frog pose. So again, you're not dropping your hip forward, you're just keeping the neck long. You also might bring your feet down from the knees so that your ankles are on the floor, if that's okay for the knees. And taking a few breaths here. This is frog pose. If your feet are apart, bring them back together behind you and walk up onto your palms if you can do that safely and comfortably. So coming into a little bit of a back bend. Again, you're kind of pressing into the floor and rolling the shoulders back and down. And then bring the hips back. And bring your knees together. And just come to sit for a moment. You could take the arms wide and bring your right elbow on top. If you can wrap your forearms, you could come into this eagle arm position. You could also just bring your forearm to the right upper arm to feel the stretch if you can't wrap. Sometimes when people are really muscle bound, it's hard to do that. Or maybe it's an issue of mobility or flexibility. It doesn't matter either way. Just lifting fingertips and elbows, letting your shoulder blades slide. And then maybe you're turning towards the left a little bit, so that intensifies the stretch in the back of the right shoulder. And then coming back to center and just opening your arms. And then bring your left arm on top, left elbow on top, wrapping your arms, or maybe just keeping the arms open. And maybe here you're turning a little bit towards the right. Keep lifting the elbows and the fingertips even as your shoulder blades are sliding. And then turning back to center and opening your arms, reaching back. Opening the chest. You might reach back and clasp the hands and come into this counter stretch. And release it. And let's come back to hands and knees again. with our hips. So circling the hips around in one direction and in the other. Coming back to center. If it feels okay, you could let your hips drop towards the right. That's a lot of weight in the right shoulder, so maybe don't stay for too long, and then maybe let the hips drop towards the left. So there's a little tractioning of the side of your body, and then come back to center. Walk your hands forward, lift your hips, tractioning your spine a bit, coming into prayer pose. And then sweep your arms back and come into child's pose. If that's hard to do, just separate your knees. Bringing your forehead down. And breathing. Breathing into your back. And then bringing your arms forward. Let's come onto the belly again. And just rock the hips a little bit side to side. And let's stretch into the quads. So bringing the left arm across the front of the mat. Reach back for your foot with your right hand. So it could be just like this. Or you maybe can spin your fingers, drawing the heel towards the buttocks. Try to lift up out of your left shoulder. Maybe even turning, so you're in a little bit of a twist. Also with your neck at least. And the shoulder, the front of the shoulders opening. And again, you could be right here, that's fine too. Release that side, bring the right forearm to the floor, left hand comes back. Spinning your fingertips. Bringing your left heel in towards the buttock, or maybe you're just reaching here. In any case, taking some breath. All of these options are good as long as the knee feels safe. And release it. And then just let your feet kind of windshield wiper the lower legs from side to side. Maybe circling them around in one direction and the other. And then bringing your legs down. Try lifting your right leg off the floor, keeping your pelvis on the floor. Upper body stays relaxed. And then try lifting left leg. Pelvis stays on the floor. And then release that, rock the hips, and then we'll lift both legs, keeping the upper body kind of neutral. You might kick a little, maybe out towards the sides and back in towards the center a couple times, different movements, and then release, rocking hips, and then coming back up again through prayer pose, walking hands to the left, keeping the right hip drawing back. Feeling some length up the right side of your torso, maybe into the armpit. And then hands come over to the right. And then back to center. Maybe the chest can come a little deeper towards the floor. Even as you're kind of wrapping the armpits in and lifting them up. Coming back again to sit. And so this position is called hero pose, where we sit on our heels like this with our knees bent. And that can be a lot for some people if knees are bothering you. So if this is not accessible to you, you might stand up. We're going to do a quad stretch, but you might instead stand up and reach for your foot and come into it like this. That won't be as much weight into your knees. So coming back, so what you might do is bring your hands back and actually extend your right leg and bring your left heel is going to come right on the outer part of your buttock there. So the knee is bent on the left side. This might be enough. You might also be able to come back further, like towards your elbows maybe, or all the way onto your back. Or you could still be in the standing position. You can also bend your right knee. And you could be bending your right knee if you were sitting also. So there's lots of ways to go here. We're not trying to twist the knee. We're not trying to bring any harm to the knee. We're trying to get a good stretch in the quads. And some people can do this with both. And usually what I do is I lift up and roll my calves out, bringing my heels right alongside, and then just come back as far as feels good for your knees and lower back. Maybe the arms can come up and over. This is called Virasana. Knees are not too wide. They're sort of, they can be hip width, but they can also just kind of stay together. Whatever feels safe for your knees. Taking a few breaths. And then coming back up. If you didn't do the other side, if you did it one side at a time, make sure you've done both sides. And then coming forward. And I like to just come up to stand and come into a forward bend, just letting my legs come back to straightening and feeling the blood flowing nicely. Let's do a few one-legged balances. So I'm going to pick up my mat and set it off to the side. Hopefully you have a tennis ball at home. You could start out by stepping into the tennis ball and massaging the bottom of your foot with it, just kind of pressing and releasing into the ball of your foot. I'm just going to bring this camera up a little higher. Hang on one second here. Sorry. I need a camera person to help me. So you're going to press and release and work your way around the sole of the foot, massaging into your arches, into the ball of the foot. And then we'll come to the other side, pressing and releasing. Should feel pretty good, and you might notice how your habit might be to kind of round forward when you're standing. Instead, keep the breath moving, staying with your conscious breathing, your neutral spine. And pressing and releasing into the ball, the tennis ball. It makes a great foot massage. And then we'll set that off to the side. And then just really feel your feet making contact with the floor. You might be able to feel the soles of your feet touching the floor more than you did before that. You might have more awareness of the soles of your feet. And then just before we start balancing on one foot, stand on both feet and kind of sway a little bit from side to side. You could even pick up one foot, bringing the weight into the other foot, and then maybe swaying a little bit back and forward, coming back to center. And then let's pick up the right foot. We've done a little quad stretching. Let's pick up the right foot and keep the knee pointing straight down so your back is not arching too much or rounding. You're staying neutral in your spine. You're drawing the heel in towards the buttock. You might bring both hands back. It's a little bit more challenging. You're kind of pressing the top of your foot into your hands. And then release the left hand, release the right hand, and draw that knee up. Holding the knee up, and then reaching the foot back. Into Warrior 3, draw it forward, and reach it back. Press through your heel, maybe the arms out to the sides, and bring the knee up. So you're kind of using some momentum, but also moving consciously, and then release it. Circling your knees in one direction and the other. And then we'll lift the left foot and bring the left hand back to the top of the foot. Again, keeping your neutral alignment of your spine, really feeling the sole of your right foot on the floor. Maybe the right hand comes back to the foot or ankle, and then you might, keeping your pelvis still in this neutral position, you might press the top of your foot into your hands. Breathing. Nice deep breath. Release your right hand, release your left hand, and draw that knee up and forward. And then reach it back, and bring it up, and reach it back, and bring it up, and release. And again, circling in one direction and the other, toes, ankles, knees, and hips. And then for our last pose, our last standing pose, we'll stand in tree pose. So we'll stand into the right foot and bring the sole of your left foot possibly up into the thigh. If that causes your hips to hike up a lot on one side, then just bring the foot down lower. And then from here, you have lots of possibilities for your arms, but you could reach your arms up like the branches of a tree, maybe lifting your gaze, breathing. You can also keep your hands together at your heart. Finding your steady gaze, your drishti. And then releasing, and again, just circling. And we'll stand on the left foot, bringing the right sole of the right foot up, possibly into the inner thigh or into the inner calf. And maybe the arms come up like the branches of a tree, really rooting yourself down into the left foot, feeling the sole of the foot on the floor. Maybe spreading your toes. Noticing how the weight of your body is balanced over the sole of the foot. And maybe the hands could also be together at the heart. And then release it. And again, circling, just letting it go. And then we're going to come down onto our backs. So I'm going to bring this camera down again. I'm really... Hi, Cheryl. Yeah, it's hot. The tree wants to be chopped down because it's too hot, okay? Come onto your bow. And just let yourself relax and draw your knees in. And just rock a little bit from side to side. Just feeling your body back down on the floor, and it feels good to be back in this relationship with gravity, moving back down towards our resting pose. Bring your feet to the floor. Let them be a little wider than your hips and your arms out to the sides, and let your knees drop from side to side slowly. Just go going slowly back and forth. Speaking of knees, Cheryl, if you're still watching, I hope your knees are feeling better. Skinning your knees as an adult is just so unpleasant. I've done it a number of times, and it ain't no fun. Next time the knees come over towards the left, just let them stay there for a moment, maybe picking the left foot up and bringing the left ankle on top of the right knee. And then releasing that, and the knees come over towards the right. Ooh, I'm sleepy. Getting towards the floor is making me yawn. Bring your right ankle on top of your left knee if that feels good. Kind of pressing your left knee towards the floor. This is called deer pose. Commonly called deer pose. I guess it looks like a deer leaping through the forest. And then releasing, bringing your knees back up and in, and rocking again from side to side. Extend your left leg and let your right knee come over into an easy twist. Maybe gazing back over your right shoulder. And then rolling back onto your back and drawing left knee in. Feeling the breath, staying with your breath for a few more moments, and bringing your left knee over to the right for the twist, maybe looking back over the left shoulder. And it's just starting to get a little darker here at 8:15. We're coming into the later part of our summer, so the light will start to go away at the end of class. And then coming back onto your back, drawing the knees in again one last time, and then just extending your legs and your arms and coming into corpse pose, Shavasana, for this final relaxation. I'm going to come to a seated position. If you're watching from home and you're on your back, just allow yourself to be heavy, releasing the weight of your body, surrendering to gravity. I'm taking a few moments to just feel the effects of this practice this evening. I kept the practice kind of slow and a little less strenuous because it's so warm out. So taking a few moments here to feel like the parts of the practice that were helpful and useful and beneficial can kind of integrate further into your being, body, mind, and spirit. And then maybe some of the other parts of the practice just kind of dissipating into the ether. So just allowing yourself to have a few more breaths here on your back. Feeling the rise and fall of your chest and your belly with the breath. And then you might roll over onto one side and come back to a seated position for a few moments. Excuse me. Come to your seat and just finding your breath again. Let's just do a little bit of breath retention before we end. So inhale through both nostrils and pause and hold the breath and let your shoulders relax away from your ears. So you're not changing the length in your spine. And keeping that length, exhale. All the air out. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale. Feeling how your ribcage expands. And pause, holding the breath, keeping the length in your spine, the crown of the head lengthening, shoulders relaxing. Retaining the breath, exhale. All the air out through the nose. One more time, inhale. Feeling your rib cage expand, and hold the breath, lengthening up through the crown of the head, keeping the lengthened spine, retaining the breath. And then exhale all the air out. And then find your natural breath in and out through the nose. Bringing the hands together at the heart. Pausing to recall your intention for practice this evening if you set one. And then bowing your head to your own practice, to your own inner teacher, your higher self, or your higher power. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining in wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you. I'm going to be teaching a lot over the next 2 weeks because Kia's going to be gone. So I'll be teaching all of her classes. And I'm looking forward to that. It'll be like a little teaching retreat. Thank you so much.